Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. So today we are back for another episode of a career and spirituality conversation. And today I have my dear colleague Sebastian, Chief Mindsetter Sebastian. I like to call him CMO, Chief Mindsetting Officer. And Sebastian Koellner is specialized in supporting primarily coaches and entrepreneurs in getting their mindset straight to succeed. But nevertheless, everything that Sebastian is going to share also applies to anyone in their personal life and career life, whether you're in a job or self-employed, it doesn't matter. So there's going to be something for everyone. So don't feel excluded. Everyone is welcome in this conversation. And so Sebastian, as usual, I like to always to ask what spirituality means to you, and then how did you get to where you are today? How does one become a chief mindsetter? and so throughout this, tell us about your story, basically.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. Maybe I'll start picking up what you just said, right? On the one hand, I firmly believe that whether you're working for someone else or you're working in your own business, we never have really a business problem. We usually have a personal problem that shows up in the business, right? And so that is why I think that what I do really, I find that I like to work with a certain kind of people, right? Yes. I also do executive coaching on the side, if you will. So it does transfer very well. Tongue in cheek, I say I help my clients cheat, lie, and steal back their own mind, right? So that that explains the pirate guard, right? Because pirates are all about stealing and all of that. And, in school, you were never supposed to copy.
Yeah.
Well, in your professional life, you learn to call it best practice. And then you're good, right? So, and give credit where credit is due. Now, what all of this leads to is, what spirituality? I think for me personally, it's about that question of what is there beyond this physical body, right? Spirit, right? What holds all of this together, but also I think it's this sense of connection to truly myself, connection to others, connection to the world at large. And my own journey to that, I don't even want to call it definition, but to that concept of spirituality, I think was mainly driven by, what am I here to do? What's my purpose, right? What makes this whole experience meaningful? I didn't know it at the time, but I actually also experienced my own dark night of the soul, if you will, which I guess is a spiritual concept, but I only learned about it after. And that was when my marriage failed and the mother of my children told me she was done. And I found myself literally on my hands and knees with a pain in my chest, not knowing how I would get back up. And it was in that moment, it's still hard for me to really put words to it, that on the one hand, something broke. And on the other hand, it was like something more like shattered. And I realized that, well, if I wanted to keep going, the only chance I had was to let go of all kinds of preconceived notions, let go of all kinds of things that I was trying to control and hold on to, and just, well, let go, surrender. And a few hours after that, really, really low point and moment, I decided to go play beach volleyball because that was the day of the week and that was on anyway. And that's when I had this, all of a sudden, everything, I don't know, was further away and closer at the same time. I was laughing and at ease. And I had this sense of really, being connected even to the trees and the sunshine and everything around it. And to me, that's what really honed that idea of that connectiveness, right? That sense of what is larger than myself, right? How do you find meaning? I think the answer varies for everyone. And for me, it's a very individual, personal thing. Yeah. But that's the big questions, right? Who am I? What am I here for? what's the point, if you will, right, of that suffering, of the pain, of the experience? It's just as well as joy. And so that goes to the question of what's spirituality for me. And the way I connect to that, even professionally, is that, you know, my kids say, oh, Daddy, you have to go to work. And I always tell them, no, I don't have to go to work. I get to. Mm-hmm. Right? With what I do today, I feel like I have found my passion. I have found my purpose. You know, at the end of a long day of coaching, am I physically tired sometimes? Yeah. I work at a stand-up desk. You know, there's all that. But at the end of a empowering coaching session, I got as much energy back out of it as I gave in, if not more. And how I got to do this kind of passion work for a living, which I consider myself blessed, lucky, happy, whatever you want to call it, right, to be in that position, was that I think somewhere over the last 10 years, I had started this journey of realizing that somehow I felt disconnected. Somehow I was always searching for something and I couldn't have put my finger on it. And the other thing important to know is, if you'd met me in my late teens or early 20s, I would have said, I don't have emotions. If I set a goal, I'll go for it. I don't have emotions, so I'll just get in the way. I just get stuff done, pardon my French. And I still, to this day, don't know what got me to a guided meditation by Marissa Peer. But at the end of it, the guy who didn't have emotions, I was on my living room floor crying, just sobbing uncontrollably. It had triggered something in me. It had put me in touch with memories from when I was a year and a half old. My mom hadn't abandoned me, but she was in a bad depression. And here I was in this dark hole all alone. And this is from a time I didn't have words for it. I could have never talked about it either in therapy or anything else I did. And all those emotions washed back up. And I realized that everything I had done up to that point was in order to prove that I am worth it, right? Was in order to prove that I belong here, that I deserve love. Yeah. It's what shaped my relationships. It's what drove me to achieve. Yeah. And it was in the minutes after that, when I went to the bathroom and cleaned up my face, that two things happened. One, I looked in the mirror and I, for the first time, actually didn't look at like that familiar stranger's face that I was shaving every day, but actually recognized myself as, wow, that's me. Wow. In a weird sense of a way. Mm-hmm. And the second thing I realized was, wow, that's powerful. And I want to do that for other people. And that's what started my journey to learn rapid transformational therapy. Even though I didn't want to be a therapist, I wanted it as a tool in my toolbox as a coach. Took me to positive intelligence, took me to, you know, all kinds of things that we coaches have a bit of an addiction to growth, to learning. You probably share that passion, Julie. And yeah. That me to, you know, actually look at from this question of, well, how did I numb myself? How did I keep myself right in this place for so long? To the question of, I'm not the only one who ticked all the boxes, who has a fancy house, a car, the job, and all of that, and feels miserable inside. So what's up with that? What does it take to be happy? Mm-hmm. And the answer I found is you get to find your own answer. And what really helps along the way is when you can take charge of all those voices in your head, right? All those, for some, it's more that it's your inner critic. For others, it's more that you're trying to please others. Some of us have more of an avoider. Some of us have more of the Mr. Perfect that drove me, right? Do it right or don't do it at all. But we all have learned patterns of behavior that we bring to trying to protect ourselves from hurt, from harm. And when you can recognize those and make an intentional choice about them, on the other side of that is a level of freedom that allows you to actually create the impact, the income that you want.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying that you had been going along with a facade that suddenly you were able to remove. Do you mind me asking, when you had that experience with that meditation, was it before or after you had your other experience of?
Oh no, that was before. That was several years before that.
Okay. So like your career shift happened first. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what were the signs that people may recognize that, you know, you might not have been able to put your finger on it then, but that in hindsight, you knew that, oh, this and this and this, they were my red flags?
Well, I think I would preface this with something really important. If you're somebody who gets stuff done, if you're an achiever, if you're a leader, right, then we have a tendency to keep working on something, right? We have a tendency to make things better. It's what got us here.
Yeah.
That tendency also has a dark side, and that is it can get to be about proving that, right? And I think the main simple real test is, do you feel energized by what you do? Now, what that is, whether you describe that as happy, whether you describe that as passionate, or, you know, I'll leave that up to you. Yeah. But if you had to even think about that question, make that a no.
Yeah.
Right? If you have to actually think about that, then it's a no. And if it's a no, then I think that the follow-up question really could be, okay, is that because, you know, I don't know, right now it's sort of a phase, and you know, I've taken on things that don't really excite me. I just want to shift my priorities back to what really energizes me, right? Or is it a no because it's sort of building and something is just off? And that, I mean, one of my earliest bosses and mentors always said, you know, if you have a job where you love 60% of it, you're good. But there's always 40%, roughly, give or take, whether that's meetings or other stuff that you don't like. Now, 60-40 is a good ratio to strive for, right? And even now in running a business, there are things that I do because they're part of building a business, right? But if that ratio is off and you can't really shift it, then I would say it's time to take a look at, you know, one of three things, right? Either you leave it, which could mean you accept it and make a conscious choice to stay there, or you leave it and say you're actually exiting it, right? Or you find that you actually love it and then you're good. And in between those two things is, or you say there's certain things that you want to change it, right? Love it, change it, leave it.
Yeah.
So, and I think people often misinterpret the leave it as then you have to go and find a new job. No, I think there's an alternative, especially since we're having a spiritual conversation. The alternative is to say, I accept it and actually embrace it and look at what can I learn from it? What does it invite me to grow?
Yes.
So there's another way of leaving it, right? Now, having said that, here's the caveat though, and I think that's a very difficult one to discern for anyone of their own, and that is, we're hardwired to favor the status quo. No matter how miserable we are, no matter how terrible the situation is, take your relationship. Why do people stay for too long in a relationship, myself included? Because we're hardwired to favor the status quo. Why do you stay in a career longer or in a certain position longer than? Because of that. Add to that a career usually comes with a certain carrot, right, of comfortable misery, paycheck, things like that, okay? But to our mind, it's very simple. It's still the old survival part of our brain that says, well, I have one job and one job only, and that is to keep you alive.
Yeah. And
what about the status quo? Well, I don't care how much it sucks, but if it didn't kill us yesterday and it didn't kill us last week and it didn't kill, right? Yeah. Chances are it ain't killing us today and it won't kill us tomorrow. So let's stay here. This is safe.
Yeah.
Right. And so even if your process, even if a part of you already knows something is off, the question isn't really, well, you're going to probably ask yourself, well, what would I do? Or where would I go? Right. All those how-to questions.
Yeah.
But until you address the underlying question of, okay, what am I really afraid of? What are the doubts and the fears I have related to getting a new job or starting over or any one of those? You're not going to take any action because, right, you're basically triggering the survival part of your brain. And that's, well, let's play this safe. And we're just going to stay in the status quo. No judgment here. But if you have a sense that you want to change something, setting a goal and just going to do it is what people will advise you to do, and it sounds sensical.
Yeah.
In my experience working with individuals on a broad variety of professions, businesses, and leadership positions, even when you know what would take you to the next level, until you address the underlying doubt and fear, chances are you're not going to act on it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In what you said earlier, you mentioned like as an important thing to be aware of is, are we drained or are we energized? Mm-hmm. And I love how you have different options. It's like either we love it or like we can change it, or or we need to go. Mm-hmm. And in a situation where it's mostly no, like what you described, it can also, while the person is still in that particular occupation, to paying extra attention to which elements, because there's always going to be, even if it's not good, there's always going to be some parts of the job where, oh, this little part gives me more energy than the rest. Mm-hmm. And like to make note of all of the aspects that are actually giving a little bit of energy. I'm thinking from the soul work I'm doing, it's like what I realized is like we are focused on the what, but there is always an intrinsic way that we're designed to operate. Mm-hmm. So let's say someone who's been like in a some technical, engineering or something very crushing numbers all day and is sick of it. Well, maybe actually, depending on whether they're doing it on their own or they're doing it in a team, maybe when they're doing it in a team, they're so much happier. So maybe it's a sign that their nature is, being a people-oriented person. So maybe the trick is that they don't necessarily have to throw the baby out with the bathwater and find a totally different career. Maybe it's just about knowing that, okay, they function better with more people around. So they can keep doing the same thing, but maybe they're going to accept different condition of working. So I love that you pinpoint that. And then, yes, moving on to the fears and I love how you're describing what's happening underneath. Is like lowering the waterline. Mm-hmm. It's like looking at what's underneath there that we can see. So I'm curious, what are the main, because you're doing both. You're doing like coaching for coaches, but you're also coaching executives and people in employment. So in your experience, what type of blocks and fears do you see that keeps people moving forward in both categories? Is it similar? Is it different? What's going on there?
Well, in a way, there's something that is similar and just, in that what I described with the voices before. I like to use this model of the internal board of directors. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. We all have a strong inner critic and judge. Okay, which is essentially the sentinel that's constantly looking for, right, what's working, what's not working. And we have a tendency to judge others. We have a tendency to judge circumstances, and you recognize this one often only in a subtle way, but it's this: I will be happy when, right? Or I would be if, right? And any one of those things is really judging the circumstances where I'm at right now is not good enough, right? And setting a signpost. The thing about that signpost is, you've probably experienced this, the closer you get to it, the more your mind moves the marker, right? You can't ever really reach it.
Yeah. Never.
And here's one other thing. No matter how confident someone is on the outside, trust me on this, on the inside, they all have that inner critic. And no matter how critical someone is towards others, they always have the harshest criticism reserved for themselves. They just don't often share it, right, with others. And so that's a common denominator. The other one is that depending on what is your main sort of driving pattern here. Let's take an example. If you're a higher achiever, right? If you define yourself over success, if you're used to getting stuff done, what is the flip side of that when it's taken to a sort of dysfunctional extreme? Then I won't start something new because I might fail.
Yeah.
Right? I'm good at what I do, and this is a part of, right, how I get things done. But now starting something new gets uncomfortable because we might fail. Take the example of the person that you had who is very good with detail, right, and numbers and things like that. When they get pressured and uncomfortable, chances are that turns into a bit of a, shall we say, controlling approach to things, right? Or an overly rational approach where they say, well, numbers I can deal with, right? They're 1 or 2, they're right or wrong, right? All this feeling and touchy stuff I don't deal well with. So you can observe it in other people.
Yeah.
And what can you do with that? Well, one, I'd love to share, it's not actually mine, but a quick, if that's of interest, like that saboteur test. Because often I find with my clients, before we even do the deep work, if you just are aware of what are your top 2 or 3 patterns, right? You can recognize it. And when you can recognize it, then you can actually catch yourself and disrupt the pattern.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what you're saying is like there is like it's not that the blocks are going to be different whether like, you know, we are self-employed or in a job. It's like as a human, we all have the same sabotaging.
In a way, you can do that with, I think you can, and Shazad Shaminova in Stanford, they've done the factor analysis and they've brought it down to like a 3x3 matrix, and you can find that there. And you might also find that you have slightly different patterns in your professional life from your personal life. Okay. But what's the only real difference between a career and sort of being a coach or running your own business? The only difference there is where your paycheck comes from, right? I mean, essentially what is all of that about is solving problems for other people, right? And what changes a bit is how you get paid for it. But other than that, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily something that makes it a particular problem for, you know, one category or the other, with maybe one exception, and that is especially entrepreneurs running their own companies are more in this position where if you're in a career, you only get to rather late in your career if you really climb the corporate ladder. But the higher up you get, I think the more intentional you get to be about surrounding yourself with people that you can be vulnerable and open with, and who will be honest and open with you. Right? Because stereotypically in a lot of corporate culture, there's a hierarchy, and a hierarchy suggests certain ways of dealing with each other. Okay, some companies are working against that and working for changing that. So that's where difference is. But in personal things, let me share, maybe I'll share a story of a client about sort of some of those, how stories can get in the way of what we do. And yes, that is a coach. And at the same time, I think a lot of us can relate. Okay. Let's do this one. I worked with a coach who had built a 7-figure business before, a different kind of business. Okay. And she then switched into coaching. Okay. Now, at the time of the decision, you know, there was all of this, okay, I did this here, starting over, that went into it, sure. But here's the thing. At the height of her previous business, her husband ended their relationship, claiming she cared more about the business than about their relationship. Okay. 3 weeks after that, her mom suffered a stroke and passed away. At the time when we started working, 5 years later, she had made the switch to building a coaching business, but her husband was still suing her for every cent of that business. And here she was, had built up her coaching business to, you know, a decent amount, but couldn't get past a certain threshold right around the 10K mark, which for coaches is a significant kind of breaking point in the business. And she just couldn't figure out why. Now, Her excuse could not be that she didn't know how, because she had done it before, right? So here, why I'm picking this is, usually we go to, I don't know how, so I need to learn how to do marketing, lead gen and all this, but it's like, no, I've done all that before, right? So it must be something else. And when we dove deep into, okay, so what's going on, explore the stories, when she reflected on those very emotional experiences a few years back, she realized that she had formed a belief, a story deep inside that said, if I'm successful financially, it will hurt my relationships.
Yeah.
And with a story like that, despite all her business know-how, she wasn't doing what she knew to pick a business up.
Yeah.
And that's the power of story. Having realized that and, very emotionally released it and healed that story and replaced it with a new one in the work we did, well, it almost instantly went to, okay, now I know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Move on. And whether that shows up in a relationship because it's about, who earns more in the relationship, whether that shows up in a story that is maybe also relatable. When I started out my business, I had the aspiration to be a loving father and present and to build my business. But I really didn't do either quite well, because when I was working on my business, I was always trying to, get back to my kids. But when I was with my kids, I was worried about the business. And so I was turning in circles and not doing either of it right. Until my coach at the time looked at me and said, well, it sounds like you say you either can be successful in your business or, right, you can be the father you want to be. I'm like, yeah, that's what it feels like. It's like, well, how can you do both?
Yeah.
And everything shifted, right?
Yeah.
And it's those stories, it's those beliefs about how the world works, those judgments about ourselves not being good enough as either, in your role or as a husband or as a father, that are how we see the world, that create our reality. And those determine how we feel about what's going on.
Yeah.
And how we feel about what's going on determines what actions we take or don't take.
Yeah.
And then, and only then, do you get to the results that you're getting.
Yeah. And like, I love the stories, the two stories you just told, because these blocks, they're counterintuitive. I mean, like they're going against the obvious. Like, of course, I want to make more than 10,000 in my business. Like, of course, I want to be an amazing father and successful at my business at the same time. And that's where like it takes sometimes the eye, and that's maybe like an important to have someone by your side that have an outside eye on what's going on for us too, so that we can bounce off what's happening, because it's so obvious. Like it's so obvious, and yet it's indetectable in a way for ourselves.
Yeah, it's the concept of the blind spot, right? I'm going to put a little plug in here for coaches and mentors. I mean, you can pay someone to be your coach. You can find a mentor. It's, for some people, it works in really good friendships, but quite often those relationships have other constraints around them. Yeah. But when you look at top performers, whether that's in sports or in business, they usually have more even than just one coach. Why? Because do you need a coach? No, eventually you can figure all this out by yourself if you really put in the time and effort. But if you want to go deeper, faster, then you might consider having someone in your corner who can do what you just said, right? Create that space and help you shine a light on those blind spots. Yeah. Because those stories, those beliefs, they are your reality. And that's what makes it often hard to see them, right? Hard to catch them. That's why coaches have coaches, right? Yeah. That's why I have several spaces created, some paid and some in other arrangements, where I say, look, tell me what you see, right? Poke me with your questions, and let's see what comes up. And in turn, that's what I do for my clients, right? One-on-one, as well as in the small group program. The main focus of my work is, the way I say it is, you have all the how-to.
Yeah.
If all you needed was more knowledge, well, just go spend an hour on YouTube or on Google and you're good, right? Just that that's not how it works, right? It's about taking action. And what gets in the way of taking action, sometimes, not always, is those underlying beliefs. So no matter what area in your life, I guess here's my point, no matter what area in your life, if you find yourself having a goal, an aspiration, and when you look in the mirror and you get real honest and you have to admit that the reason you're not there yet is because you didn't show up.
Because
right?
what didn't show up? Sorry, Sebastian.
Because you didn't show up, right?
Yeah.
You didn't do what you do.
Yeah.
Don't say you're not disciplined enough. Don't go to any of this, like maybe I lack motivation or maybe I don't know how. I would usually ask, what are you afraid of?
Yeah.
And now we're coming back to the spiritual aspect of this too. Why do I talk about fears? Because, and what's behind fear? Underneath every fear is a desire. What? A desire. Why? Because if you didn't care, you wouldn't feel afraid. You'd just be neutral, right? And so what I always tell my clients, no matter whether they run their own business or they're in an executive leadership position in a company, is the fact that you have doubt and fear is a good sign. One, that this really matters to you because, right, there is a desire underneath, something you really care about. And two, it's also a good sign that you're leaving your comfort zone, right? You're doing something new, something beyond what you've done before. And this is where growth happens. Yeah. And if you remember my personal belief in what is spirituality and what is the whole purpose, then, you know, pursuing your passion, pursuing your purpose, I don't think you find it. I think you live into it step by step, day by day. And the way you do that is by pushing that edge of the comfort zone, right? The point of solving a problem in business, whether you work for yourself or for someone else, is not to be finally free of problems. No, it's to be ready for the next bigger problem. Yeah. Right? When you stop growing, you're already dying.
Yeah. Yeah. And like getting out of comfort zone, and like, you know, when we're talking about spirituality and like in that, when we relate that to energy and the law of attraction, for instance, when we're into that, the vibrational state that we are in, when we are not changing, we can't possibly attract something different in our awareness, and the possibility stays the same. So like the only way to shake things up is to push ourselves and do something different. Sometimes I would say, even if we're not ready to do something bold on the professional front, even just like changing hobbies, doing something different in our personal life, just for the sake of shaking our vibration, like meeting new people, doing something where there is no stakes, there is no risk, no ultimate risk, but that already kind of gets our vibration to change a little bit and start attracting something different. Yeah, so I like how you're tied this back to spirituality there, Sebastian. And you said something earlier about, you know, the difference ultimately between entrepreneurship and employment is like where the paycheck comes. So I think it's a great segue into like talking about like honing in onto the money aspect. So like what are the main, because money mindset is one of your, you know, one of your topics. So what's interesting to know here for our viewers, whether...
Okay. Well, I think what the thing about money and money mindset is, let's start with mindset. The beautiful thing about mindset is that it's not actually set, right? You can change it. Okay. Yeah. And here's why like my program is called Money Freedom Mindset. Okay. But one of my participants said, you should really call it Life Freedom Mindset. I said, I know, and I'm still going to keep the name. Okay. Because what is, see, money has this thing. We all have a relationship with it. Most of us, when we start out on this journey, one that doesn't really serve us all that well. right? Because very few of us grew up with parents who, or let me phrase this differently. Why do the rich people manage to maintain a lot of that? I think you can leave all the insidious stuff aside, but they teach their children different stories about money. And when you grow up with different stories about money, of course, money helps in making more money, yes, but you also grow up with a very different mindset, with very different stories about money. So the invitation is, check for yourself, right? Some of the stereotypical ones are like, money doesn't grow on tree, money is the root of all evil, and all those sorts of things. Just check what you've heard growing up, right? What comes up. But this is where the rubber hits the road, right? How many people are actually comfortable negotiating their salary? And vice versa. I've coached coaches who've been in sales before on having the money conversation. Not because they didn't know how to sell, but because they got to the realization that, well, yeah, before I was selling someone else's product. Now I'm selling me. And somehow that's a totally different ballgame. I'm like, good, because I'm not here to teach you sales. I'm here to help you with that story about yourself, right? And if you've ever heard this phrase, like, charge what you're worth, whether it's for your salary or as a business owner, it makes me cringe. At the same time, it illustrates a lot of things. We attach value, and often somehow our value, right, very easily to our paycheck, to the number in the bank account, to whatever else, when there really is no connection whatsoever. Because what you get paid, if you have a job, is based on the value you add to the company. What I get paid as a coach is based on the value I add for my clients. None of that has anything to do with my value as a coach or my value as a person.
Okay, so when you say, when you cringe, when you hear charge what you're worth, it's like not your worth as a
and I could never charge what I'm worth. Nobody would be, one, I wouldn't know what number to put on it, and two, nobody would have the money to actually pay that, right? So that's the big thing. But all the stories we have around money often tie into, what am I worth, right? Am I good enough? Is this for me, right? Most of us go one of two ways, depending on our upbringing. Either we more or less knowingly perpetuate what we've learned from our parents, or we try and we pretty much go the exact opposite, right? So if the parents were more saving, then I might be more of a spender, right? If my parents were, if there never really was enough and I could never really buy the things I wanted to as a kid, or often didn't get, right, what I wanted, then as soon as I have money, I'm more likely to just indulge in, right? Those are the two kind of things.
So
but if you want to get to, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. What do you think is that we can go like, is like either we can follow the tracks or go like a 180?
Well, I think quite simply because some of us choose to more or less rebel. Right, and just say, okay, so this is not what I want, and then but we haven't learned anything else, right? We're just saying that's not it. So you move away from something, and then it's the other there.
So and it's the syndrome of the good girl or the rebel, basically.
Exactly, right? So this is what I would say. And then when it comes to money, a lot of that is not conscious, which is a bit strange, because it seems like a numbers concept, and it seems right, but you have great books out there about why smart people make, stupid money mistakes, right? And all of those things, because it's usually not about the money. It's usually about who I am. It's usually about what I'm worth. It's usually about the emotional experiences I had with it, right? Like, check, is it easier for you to spend money on yourself, or is it easier for you to spend money on gifts for others? Right? Is it, what is it about the savings that you have, right? Does that give you a sense of security? Right? Right? Or do you only save when you have a specific sort of objective in mind?
Yeah.
Right? And when you look at your close, intimate relationships, often money is a touchy subject in those too, because often we're not aware of what are my subconscious stories and attachments to this concept, and what are my partners. And until we actually get to that level, we can't really connect either. And for, of course, my clients who are coaches and business owners, there's another dimension that comes to it. And that is, this product is something I care about, right? And in a way, most of the people I work with are driven by a mission, by a passion, by wanting to serve and help others, by creating a positive impact. And quite often that goes with, so money isn't really important to me. Now, if I say money isn't really important to me, if that was true, what kind of business am I going to build? One where I don't care about money. Now, if I get lucky, money comes in anyway, right? But that's, a business can only really function with money. And so one of the key things to sort out there is, what is your relationship with money? And that is where, in the beginning of my 3-month program, we spent 4 weeks on diving deep into your emotional connections, the subconscious stories you carry around, because you cannot change what you do not know. Yeah. And once you have an idea of what your blueprint is, we can then look at, okay, and which ones of these stories align with where you want to go, and which ones don't serve you. And then there is a deep, involved process in upgrading the ones that don't serve you. And when we're all done with that, after the first 4 weeks, that's when you relook again at your goals, your vision for wealth, and you prepare a 60-day empowered action playbook. And then we spend 60 days of you taking action, right? And really integrating everything. Yeah. Because again, you want to align with what you want to create. Okay. And the most important part that I found that gets in the way of that is those subconscious stories and beliefs. Yeah.
So to summarize, even though like money, like the what we are paid has nothing to do with our worth, is the value that we provide for a company or for a client. The blocks that are going to get in our way of getting there and receiving that money is often related to how we feel worthy, and all of the blocks that are around like our own sense of personal worthiness and value and what we deserve, etc.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can put that in the context of the law of attraction, right? Your energy and your vibration, and it attracts and all of that. Yeah. But it doesn't matter whether you believe in that or not, because what still remains is, when I have those doubts, when I feel uncomfortable asking for those things, then that's how I show up in a salary negotiation, right? And that's already how, and that's what in a very subtle way decides, how do I even prepare that conversation? Right? When it's not about me anymore, but about my contribution and my value, what will I do? Well, I'll let my boss know ahead of time that I want to talk about my performance review, and I'm going to show them, this is what I've done, this is what I've done, this is what I've done. And I'm basically going to show them that I've already produced at a level that is above my current pay grade, and that will set the stage for that conversation. As long as I still believe that it's about me and about that and my value and all of that, then I also have doubts about it. And so then I'm kind of asking, saying I would like a raise, and there's no case to be made. Yeah. Now, is that law of attraction or not? I don't care, because it comes out of, right, your subconscious beliefs drive your emotions, who drive your actions, and those drive your results.
And in that sense, like the way you describe like the negotiation here, is applying the good old advice as of when we are focused, if frazzled, like if in doubt, focus outwards rather than focus inwards. like, you know, in public speaking, they say that, or like, you know, focus on the other person and what, and stop navel gazing, basically. So that's very valuable than in a money conversation. So it's not, as long as it's all facts and what we provide for the other person, then we should be a lot less self-conscious.
Yes. And now the one advantage that somebody who runs their own business has over somebody who negotiates their salary is that I negotiate my salary, once a year? Whereas if I run my own business, I have that exact kind of conversation, hopefully a lot more frequently, right? So that's the main difference. But it comes down in both cases to, see, when I talk to someone about coaching with, this conversation could go like this. Like if I sold coaching as basically a service, how would you describe it? Well, I would say, look, you have a goal you want to get to. Well, we're going to meet 3 times a month for an hour. We have a conversation, your life changes, and you pay me $5,000 a month for it. Any takers? Probably not, right? Because, sorry, what? Okay. That is the equivalent to telling your boss, I want a 5% raise. Because I work here, this is what I do, and I just deserve it, right? Okay. What does this look like really when I do this for real with a client? At some point, yes, we talk about the investment. But that comes after we talk about what is it that you want to create? Where are you headed, right? What is your goal? What is your vision? And what really gets in the way of that? Right? Why are you not there yet? Why do we do that? Well, one, because the most important thing I can do for you before you even pay me is help you get real about your situation. Because here's another part to accepting the status quo. In order to make this work and staying in the status quo, we have to talk ourselves into it's okay. And as long as it's okay, you're just going to stay there. How do you get out of that? Get real about what is it costing you if you stay there. Our mind ignores the cost of the status quo because it's biased towards the status quo. So that's the most important thing that can happen there. And then you get to decide if what it's costing you and if what you have to gain is worth it to you to invest all your most valuable resources. And your most valuable resource is not money. It's your time, it's your energy, it's your attention. Because that is limited. Money is not. You can create more money anytime you choose to. But literally creating more time isn't going to happen. We all have 24 hours in a day, right? And so what do I do as a coach is what if you want to do in a salary negotiation, and that is talk about what do you really want? What is the value and what is that worth to you? And if you come to me and you want to create this business and you know you can, but you're just stuck here and you pay me a 4-figure amount for that every month, but therefore your business grows, right? Well, let's do the math. I had a client who had been coaching before, but hadn't been in a while. He's a business school professor, and he wanted to get back into coaching. But when we started working, he goes, I think my problem is I don't have anything valuable to say anymore. I'm too old now. Now, you and I look at it as like, okay, let me get this straight. You're a professor at a business school, right? You've coached executives before, right? And you don't have anything valuable to say. Okay, what does anybody else have, right? But it's not about ratio, right? It's about, what's the story here? Once we worked through that and helped him recognize that and upgrade that story, the next block was, I know I should be posting on LinkedIn and I know I should be connecting with people. I really hate this stuff. I said, well, who says you should be posting on it? Well, everybody says you should. And yeah, if you go out there on the internet, that's what a lot of people tell you how to build a business. So, well, how do you connect with people? Well, I prefer to have phone calls and I prefer to meet them over coffee and have lunch with them even. I'm like, well, it's your business. Why don't you? Oh, okay. So he did. And out of some of those conversations, he talked to a friend of his who had a friend in HR over at a larger corporation. Long story short, they were looking for someone to help with their executive leadership team. Within 2 months, he signed a 6-figure contract.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't do that for him. I just helped him remove what got in the way of doing what he already knew he could, or at least a part of him knew he could. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is the value of coaching, of mentoring, right? Now, if you have a certain mindset, you will go and look at it as a cost, as that's expensive. I don't argue my price with anyone. I just say, well, maybe. But the question is not really what does it cost? The question is, what is it worth to you to get where you want to go?
And how much would it cost not to? Yeah. And I love your story with this man and how you allowed him to find the way to do business the way that looked like him. That was because true, like we're trying to fit ourselves. So like we are trying to escape the box possibly of the corporate or like the job. And then right there we plug ourselves into another box, trying to run a business. Oh yeah, but everybody says it should be done this way or this way. And like allowing to do it the way I see it through, along my favorite lens of, soul alignment, is like in a way that aligned with the soul, like, so like if forcing ourselves to do it in a way that is counter to our own nature, I don't see how that's possibly yielding results. So I love that you're providing that freedom for your clients to do it in a way that resonates and that brings freedom to their soul expression. And so I would have like one question about, for people who are possibly in that questioning of like they're like, in a job and they're wondering if self-employment is something that is that would be a good fit for them. Would you have some advice on that? How to be sure if there is even such a thing?
How to be sure?
No, that's not like. Let me take that
back. I guess I would ask this question. Well, if you're already thinking about it, right? What does that tell you? Okay, and then I would probably advise to create a space where you stop thinking and you really just feel your way into this. And if you're excited about that idea, scary excited is okay. Right? Remember, behind every fear is a desire, right? So if it doesn't excite you and at the same time scare you, I would say something is off, right?
Sorry, say it again. If it excites you, but
it doesn't scare you, then I would say something is off.
Okay.
So the fact that you're afraid of it just proves that there's something there for you. Okay. At the same time, now the question becomes, how do you deal with that fear and how do you deal with the unknown? And I would say there's, well, essentially, I was going to say two, but I guess there's three kinds of people, right? There's the one type who just leaves it because it's just not, right? And then they stay where it is. Yeah. And if that's you, that's fine. Then just make your peace with the fact that you've decided that path is not for me, right? Stop second guessing yourself, stop judging yourself for it. It's not for everyone. And if you know that it's sort of exciting, yeah, but it's really genuinely no, it's not for me, make your peace with it and go back to focusing everything on how do I live my purpose, working for someone else. Nothing wrong with it. Now, if you say, no, there really is something here for me and I want to give this a go, then I think you have essentially, overly simplifying this, two ways to do it. One is to say, almost no matter what it is that you're thinking about, you can probably start it on the side. Start building, start creating content, start having conversations. I mean, coaching is an obvious one. If you wanted to start coaching people, start coaching people. Where it's like, well, I can't have a second job. Well, then coach them for free, right? I mean, what I'm showing you is what you're going to encounter is all kinds of resistance, all kinds of reasons why this doesn't work, which takes you back to, I'll just put it out there, give me a call. We got to work through your doubts and fears, right? Because it looks like good reasons, but really not. But if you know that on your risk tolerance side, you're not one to burn all the bridges, well, then do it on the side. It creates its own challenges, time management and all of that, and it can be done. If, on the other hand, you know that you're just going to distract yourself if you keep your job, and you know it's time and it's done, and you have the financial means, right, to do that. The one thing I would say, keep in mind is some people get it done faster, but a good rule of thumb is that it takes around 3 years or so before you have it, right, built up. So make sure you have that ramp, and you can cover that, and then go do it. Now, you will be tempted to look into a lot of how-to, right? All the things you need to know. And a lot of that you do need to know. But if you want to speed up the learning curve, I personally would invest in mindset and mental skills coaching, maybe even before you start, or at least right from the beginning. And right then you're still naive, hopefully enough, right, to think that you don't know it, because otherwise you're not going to get on this journey. And I really firmly believe that it will speed up your development and your learning curve. But whether you do that with me or with a coach or with a mentor or whatever else, surround yourself with people who think like that, who build their own business or who are in the process of, because we can't help but be influenced by the people we spend a lot of time with. So that might be the other way to go get started, and that is put yourself out there, have those conversations, expose yourself to business owners, to potential customers, to potential clients, have those conversations.
And I like what you say about in managing our mindset. Like we are especially as self-employed entrepreneurs, like you're going to be the sharpest, you get to be the sharpest tool in your toolbox.
Well, it's the same for every one of us, though. What is your most important asset? Right, it's your mind, it's your health. Take care of it. And well, and at the same time, know that we're all at one level or another procrastinators, right? And so if you don't want to, maybe this is a good segue into, it's an invitation. If if you say, well, I don't know about this and I want to go give this a try, whatever else, there's a lot of resources out there. And most coaches also will offer various different, workshops and seminars for free. Why? Because coaching is something that if you haven't done it before, you probably want to experience, right? To really get a feel for it. And there's a component of, even when I commit to coaching, there's still a component of who's the right coach for me, right? Do I connect with this person? Do I resonate? Now, one of the things that I offer is free workshops like that. And there is one coming up in early May that is on how to take action, even when you don't feel like it. Right. And that will go a lot deeper into giving you quick hacks to do in the moment, right? When you don't have time to do the deep work, like what can I do right then and there to take action anywhere? And it will also, because our conversation was, me sharing a lot of things. The workshop will be a lot more hands-on and walking everyone through, really reflecting and exploring what are the stories, what are the doubts that are getting in your way of taking action consistently. And even if you then decide not to, enroll in the program or continue coaching with me, if you come, show up and play full out, that's what you're going to leave with. And that insight gives you the starting point for getting real honest with yourself and for deciding how you want to go about changing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and to be clear as well, like these are open, it's not just for coaches, it's like it's of benefits to everyone. Yes, absolutely.
I do those workshops in various different groups and communities and on platforms. And I do that because, so you asked earlier, right, what's the common denominator? And to me, the common denominator is we all have stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's how we process the world. And some of those stories are aligned with where we want to go. And some of those stories are not aligned anymore with where we want to go.
Yeah.
And the key to creating different results is to create a different story.
Yeah. Awesome, Sebastian. So you have that workshop coming up soon, and
We'll share the link.
Yeah, I'll link up, I'll share all of the information about that. Later down the line, you have your program more specifically about money mindset, etc. And everyone, so I'll make sure that everything is shared so that people are aware. And so before finishing, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have, any last word of advice for our audience that you'd like to share?
We've touched on a lot of things. I think maybe for me to wrap this up is an invitation, or maybe for some of you a bit of a challenge as well.
Yeah.
And that is, we started from what is spirituality. And for me, this is all about our interconnectedness, right? And our purpose.
Yeah.
And no matter where you're at, to me, that process is never done as long as we're in this iteration of living right here. And so the fact that you're listening to a conversation like this, right, is evidence that you do challenge yourself. You're looking for input. You want to keep growing. And maybe the next step for you in that is, there's a difference between, in my own journey, when I reflect on it, for years I had been consuming input, consuming self-development, literature, trainings, and all of that. And it was only after that moment that I described very early on that living room floor, crying, that I made the decision, I want to do this for other people, that I shifted from consuming to actually engaging, to actually doing personal development work. Yeah. If you took insight from this, that's great. But I don't work for insight. I work for impact. And that comes, right? That second part of that is act. And you don't do that when you listen, when you read, right? That's still safe. So I guess my challenge or invitation is, look for what's the next level of development where you can really put yourself in an environment where you are encouraged or forced, depending on what you need, to take action, right? To do the work. And the way I put it, to come and play. Because really, what's the point of growing a business? What's the point of having a career? Heck, what's the point of having kids? If not to play, to have fun, and to enjoy this life that, whatever you believe that you're living right now. Right? So that would be my invitation, my challenge to you, and that is to just consume it, play full out.
Yeah, consume, then create. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sebastian. So on these words, what are you going to take action on? Just go and do it. That would be
and if you want to do me a favor, send me a message, share with me what have you taken from this and what have you done with it.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yes, we want to know.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Julie.
Thank you, Sebastian. That was awesome. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you on the next conversation. Bye.